Like what you see? Like to be in the know? Visit facebook.com/WBGU and like us today. Stay in touch with what's new at WBGU-TV, national PBS programs, local productions, station events, and more.
When I was in my 6th grade year, I was bullied all the way through the entire year. And then towards the end of the year, the climax happened and an awful bullying incident happened. And it was just terrible. It tore me down and didn't know how to feel about it.
Some kids in her class, 7 of them, got together and put together what they entitled as the death book. And the death book was pictures and diagrams and notes on 5 different ways to kill Ruthanne. I think the kids did this because Ruthanne is quirky in the most wonderful way, and she's comfortable with who she is and comfortable in her own skin. And some of the explanations that they gave the principal was that they couldn't get to her. No matter what they did to her, it didn't seem to affect her.
At first I was just shocked, as anyone would be, and I think the depression kind of followed a little bit. I'd never been depressed in my life. I've always been a very happy kid, but I couldn't help but thinking, you know, what if they are going to do something else like this again, or why would they do this to me? So I got on my computer and I decided to go on OWN, and it said email Oprah now. I'd grown up with Oprah. Nap time when I was little was sitting with my grandmother in my cradle next to her when she was watching the Oprah show. So I clicked on it and I put in my information and I just emailed, and I think there was some crying in it at some point. All I remember is clicking send and just having my stomach completely drop. And then I didn't think anything of it. I told myself, Ruthanne, don't get excited about it. Nothing's gonna happen. Millions of people email her every day probably. Almost a year went by and it was Valentine's Day, and I walked downstairs to go get my dinner and my dad's like, just get whatever you want to eat, because Mom's on the phone. And I was like, what? Who's Mom talking to?
It was one of the producers from Harpo. And at first I was a bit skeptical because I didn't know anything about the email that Ruthanne had sent. So at first I was a bit skeptical, but he seemed to know so much about Ruthanne and about the bullying incident. And then pieces started coming together, and we spent quite a while on the phone, and then he spent some time on the phone with Ruthanne.
They reached out to us on February 14th, and by February 20th or something like that, I was asked to come in for a cold read for a House of Meats commercial. And that was by my acting teacher, who I love dearly. And I came in on a Sunday, and I sat down and I did a cold read, and then I was handed this really beautiful invitation. And they told me pretty much that I was gonna meet Lady Gaga and be on the Oprah show and everything.
Ruthanne and I flew out to Boston to go to see Lady Gaga for the Born This Way Foundation launch. And Ryan had told Ruthanne that he had to go on a business trip and he was going to be gone. So he left a day or two before we left to fly out. And when we landed in Boston, Ryan had driven to Boston and surprised Ruthanne there, so we got to be there as a family and do all the events together. After we decided to drive back with Ryan, and we were in the car and talking, and Ruthanne said, I want to start my own foundation. I want to have my own thing. I don't want to be remembered as the little girl that had the death book written about her. I want to be remembered as the little girl that stood up and did something about it.
What we really hope is that Ruthanne Johnson and the BU Foundation will someday be a household name. And really what we want to do is we want to spread anti-bullying awareness to schools and everywhere, workplaces, homes, because the way I was treated and the way I felt, no one should feel that way. And unfortunately, almost everyone has probably felt that way once in their life.
Every child either has or will experience being a bully, being a bystander, and being a victim. They all kind of take a stab at all of them at one time or another, whether they want to or not, whether they're sucked in by peer pressure. And my advice is to have those lines of communication open. Talk to your kids, understand what they're thinking and how they're dealing with the situations they're in.
I love that I'm reaching people, and I hope that when I get older I'll continue to reach people, and hopefully we're going to soon be traveling around and speaking at schools. And that's really what I want to do. That's my passion. It always has been. I thought I wanted to be an actress and a singer, and I do, but I don't know, this is maybe my calling to be a speaker.
Scenic Stops is brought to you by WBGU-TV. Support great local programming by giving now at wbgu.org/pledge.